Thank you to the sponsor of this video, LEGACYBOX. There was a time when television stations would sign off at night. Just prior to seeing the channel test patterns, it was common for the national anthem to play. This patriotic way of signing off is a fond memory for many growing up during the dawn of television. The 1960s, 70s, and 80s were known for the large family station wagons that could be found in most driveways. As a kid, riding in the very back of the station wagon was the best seat in the car. The rear-facing seats made it fun to make faces and hand gestures to the other cars on the road. There was once a time when government-issued food was handed out by the local health departments. Huge blocks of processed American cheese, butter, and boxes of powdered milk is something that instantly takes you back in time. Having a grandmother who worked for the health department meant that we saw plenty of these staples in our house growing up. Laundry day was easy to recognize back in the day, when wet clothing and bedding would be aired out to dry on the clothesline in the backyard. This method of drying clothes made them smell really fresh and clean. Not to mention, they didn't shrink a size after drying. Watching movies once meant tuning your TV to Channel 3, hitting the power button on the VCR, and then loading in a VHS tape. This was often followed by heating up some Jiffy Pop popcorn on the stove. Before key fobs and phone apps, cars had two separate keys. The round key locked and unlocked the doors, while the square key turned over the ignition. Both of these keys could also be found on a key ring, with other important keys like your house key. Do you remember going to some of these places on a Friday night with friends? How many of you remember using the phone book to look up telephone numbers? These books were usually kept somewhere near the kitchen telephone. The yellow pages were how we called a business, and the white pages gave us residential telephone numbers. This was also a time when important phone numbers were memorized, or at the very least, kept on a written list by the phone. Before debit cards and self-service checkouts, there was a time when you could write a check to pay for groceries. This was back when they actually opened most of the checkout lines, so waiting for someone to write a check wasn't a big deal. Going to the movies used to be much different than it is today. First off, we used to actually go to a theater, rather than just watching one on Netflix. Before going, you also had to check the times in the newspaper, or call the theater to find out what time your movie was playing. Having the patience to listen to every movie and time before the recording got to the one you were waiting for sometimes took a while. When you caught a cold, there was no better remedy than Vicks VapoRub, Campbell's Chicken Noodle Soup, and a big glass of Canada Dry Ginger Ale. This concoction instantly made you feel better. Well, that and your mom waiting on you hand and foot. When you were little, did you start your literacy journey by reading little golden books? These classic cardboard books could be found just about everywhere, From bedtime stories to Saturday morning cartoon characters, little golden books offered something for everyone. Do you remember spending a Saturday out shopping at one of these great stores? There was a time when taking a photograph and having it print instantly from the camera was the latest and greatest technology. These Polaroid cameras developed in front of your eyes, usually as you shook the picture to help it process faster. These photographs would then be stored in photo albums with plastic sleeves, and the books would often be flipped through whenever you had company over. Snow days were always an exciting time for kids, especially when they closed schools. The anticipation of the news of whether schools would be closed was much different than it is today. Now a text message and email is sent out to every family, but years ago you would have to wake up early, turn on the local news, and watch the scrolling banner at the bottom of the TV screen to find out if you were lucky enough to have the day off. Some people might even argue that no matter what the weather was like, school was always open, and they would trudge miles to and from school, even in heavy snow. Do you remember packing for a trip and using a suitcase that looked like this? These hard-sided suitcases had push-down latches on either side of the handle, and generally had silky interiors with elastic pockets on all the sides. I remember having various sizes, which also included a smaller case for bathroom items. Before computers took over every aspect of our lives, report cards used to be handwritten by your teacher. Not only did teachers have to write down grades for each subject, but they also made notes about each student. Many of us probably still have some of these saved in a keepsake box in the attic somewhere. One thing that really sticks with you are the restaurants you ate at with friends and family. Do you remember these places? Before cell phone towers reached from coast to coast, many of us had to wait until after 7 p.m. to call someone long distance. Making phone calls to someone that didn't live close by was expensive, and you would try to keep calls brief. But the best way to save money on long-distance phone calls was to wait until after 7 p.m. when rates would drop. This was in addition to calling someone collect, and you would have to wait for them to accept the charges before you were connected. Did you have to take a typing class when you were in high school? This class taught you how to properly use a typewriter, while also teaching you how to type faster. During the 1960s and 1970s, typewriters were used in just about every office, and it was considered a high-demand skill for high school graduates who were about to enter the job market. Collecting grocery store stamps provided incentives for people to shop at certain stores. It was fun to lick the stamps and fill up the books of S&H green stamps or blue chip stamps, and then trade them in for merchandise. Kids often help their mothers in collecting and redeeming these loyalty rewards, and they certainly remind you of your childhood. Christmas time was different decades ago, with kids across the country awaiting the Christmas catalogs from their favorite stores. The Sears Wish book was probably the most popular, but JCPenney, Spiegel, and Montgomery Ward also had their own. The catalogs would be passed from kid to kid, with toys being circled and pages being dog-eared as they made their Christmas list. By the time Christmas arrived, the catalogs would be completely tattered and worn out, but hopefully Santa delivered exactly what you wanted. Learning cursive at school used to be a rite of passage for a young person. Standing up at the blackboard and practicing writing letters prepared us for a lifetime of communicating, right up until computers changed the way we connected with people. Email and texting has replaced writing letters and actually talking to people. But the time we spent learning how to quickly and gracefully script words was one that shaped our primary school years. Eight-track tapes made it possible to listen to our favorite music anytime we wanted. The days of waiting for the radio station to play a song were over, especially when 8-track players became an option to have factory installed in many Fords. 8-track tapes were not only portable, but the library of music offered something for everyone, which made them extremely popular, up until the compact cassette tape took over in the early 1980s. Watching television over the years is something that we all remember, and we all had our favorites. Did you happen to watch any of these TV shows from the past? Prior to having a phone with a camera, taking photographs was something that was reserved for special occasions. These photos were not stored digitally, and you had to get them developed before you could see how they turned out. Dropping them off at a drive-through photomat was how many of us developed film. These convenient little booths were located in shopping center parking lots and promised to have your photos developed overnight. One of the frustrating things about playing cassette tapes during the 1980s is that they would occasionally get tangled up in the tape deck. Usually the tape itself would be pulled out and need rewinding back into the cassette. This is where many of us used a pencil to wind the gears to get the tape back inside the cassette. There was once a time where road maps were handed out at gas stations for free. This was before GPS and the introduction of Google Maps, so these paper maps would need to be consulted to find out where to go. You might also remember the road atlas that many people kept in the glove compartment. This book had maps from every state and was the ultimate road trip accessory. After the internet changed the way we navigated, MapQuest printouts could be used to give us turn-by-turn instructions. Pizza Hut used to embody the nostalgia that many of us have for the 1980s. The stained glass chandeliers, the checkered tablecloths, and the pizza buffet were among some of our favorites. But another big deal was the Book It program they offered. This was motivation to hit your reading goals for the month and entitled you to a free personal pan pizza for your efforts. Ad campaigns are often very memorable for kids because they were glued to the TV watching Saturday morning cartoons. Do you remember these advertising campaigns from the past? How many of you drank Kool-Aid by the pitcher? Most households had a designated Kool-Aid pitcher that was already stained from past use. This was most likely where kids got their energy from, with loads of sugar mixed into the fruity goodness that made Kool-Aid special. Although we still use Tupperware today, it became a nationwide obsession when housewives began to throw Tupperware parties during the 1950s, 1960s, and 1970s. This was the only way to get your hands on a set of reusable storage containers, so many moms saw Tupperware as a way to start their own business. Tupperware parties became social events, held right in your living room with refreshments and snacks. It was the ultimate grassroots approach, and it made Tupperware a household name. Sundays used to be a special day in many households. This was the day that Dad would read the Sunday paper with breakfast, and then everyone would get dressed in their best clothes and head out to church as a family. Following church, there would be a get-together with your extended family at the grandparents' house, and the afternoon would be spent playing with cousins before a nice meal as an entire family. It was basically a family reunion that occurred once a week. Did you ever record songs from the radio onto a cassette tape? These mixtapes would be made by waiting patiently for that one song to air, and you would mash down the play and record buttons at the same time to begin the recording. Although it took a while to get all of your favorite songs together, you could then listen to it over and over again until the cassette tape was eaten by your Walkman. Wax candies used to be a favorite of kids. The colorful wax bottle candy was food grade, which meant you could bite off the lid, drink the fruity juice inside, and then chew on the wax bottle like gum. If wax bottles weren't your thing, then maybe you favored candy cigarettes. These chalky sticks made you feel like you were just like Dad, puffing on a Marlboro. With packaging that resembled actual cigarette boxes of the day, candy cigarettes were one of those things that made you feel all grown up. Many of us will never forget our favorite toy growing up. Do you happen to remember some of these? If you remember back to your childhood home, do you recall seeing these shadow portraits or silhouettes decorating the wall? Usually they were of a younger version of your parents or of a close relative, but the profile silhouettes were certainly a popular way to capture the past. How many of us had moms that would schedule an appointment at the Olin Mills studio to have pictures made that looked like this? These shadowy floating head pictures were super popular during the 1980s, so many of us might still have copies of them in a box in the attic or in an old photo album. Christmas time meant that the classic Rankin and Bass specials would be airing. Rudolph the Red-Nosed Reindeer is perhaps the best loved, but Santa Claus is Coming to Town and Frosty the Snowman were right up there too. These were an annual tradition in my house, along with many other Christmas movies and specials. There was something special about waiting for them to air, and your entire family gathering around the TV to watch. When you were younger, there were some things that would stick with you, literally, throughout your life. A visit to your grandmother's house might have been one of these memories that is hard to forget. The plastic cover that encased her couch and protected it from her grandkids made for some sticky situations when it was warm out, and some loud cracking noises if the plastic cover was cold. Either way, the plastic was never comfortable, and the thing never seemed to come off the furniture once it went on. The radio, and our relationship with it, used to be a bit more interactive. The music played was a mix of what was popular, which may have included a top 10 countdown, but there were also times when you could call in and request a song. If you think back, you probably had your favorite radio station's phone number memorized, and the sound of a busy signal just meant you would keep trying until you got through. Then there was the waiting to finally hear your favorite song played. Televisions used to pick up signals from the local TV stations, and they needed adjustable antennas to make this happen. If you had an analog TV with the UHF and VHF knobs on it, then you probably also remember the rabbit ears that sat on top. These adjustable antennas were usually positioned to get the clearest picture possible. They were often even modified to include extra tinfoil around the ends to improve the reception. As a kid, and maybe even as an adult, for the best afternoon snack, you may have stopped at the local gas station to pick up an RC Cola and a moon pie. This combination became a tradition, especially in the South, and it dates back to the Depression when it was considered the working man's lunch. The chocolate and marshmallow sandwich, paired with an ice-cold RC, hit the spot, and the pair even inspired a song during the 1950s. If your family took vacations back in the day, with all the kids piling into the back of the station wagon, then you remember pulling over on the side of the road just to eat lunch. Rest stops, gas stations, and fast food restaurants weren't readily available back then, so families not only packed suitcases, but they also packed the cooler. Some families even brought their own table and chairs, and they didn't mind setting it up right on the side of the road. During the weekends and even summer months, many of us spent the majority of the day on our bikes. Whether you were riding to a friend's house or maybe even exploring your town, after a long day of adventure, the street lamps would turn on, and that was the signal which told just about every kid to head home. There was nothing better than playing outside until the streetlights came on, because it meant you had had a full day with friends. During those hot summer months, one of the places that was always busy was the walk-up Dairy Queen. After riding your bike for miles, some soft-serve ice cream or a dilly bar was the best way to cool off. These small-town Dairy Queens were special because many were seasonal. When they opened each year, you knew that summer had arrived. Friends and families alike would make these trips to the local Dairy Queen a common occurrence. That is, until the leaves began to turn and kids headed back to school. How many of you remember watching these popular kids shows religiously? If you went to a gas station during the 1950s and 1960s, you might remember that everything was taken care of for you. Full-service attendants would check fluids, fill the car with fuel, and clean your windshield, without you having to leave the car. This lasted up until the 1970s, when the gas crisis caused many stations to abandon this practice in an effort to reduce prices. And then gas pumps started to look more like this. How many of you would watch the Jerry Lewis MDA Telethon each and every Labor Day weekend? This broadcast used to be a star-studded event that had families gathering around the TV each year. The telethon would raise money for muscular dystrophy, and by the end of the 1970s, it was raising about $30 million during each broadcast. Maybe you were watching in 1976, when Jerry Lewis and Dean Martin reunited after 20 years. One chore that no one looked forward to was defrosting the freezer. The frost built up inside the icebox would often get so bad you barely had room to store anything. That's when you would break out the ice pick, maybe a blow dryer, and plenty of towels. This was something that was done on a regular basis, and eventually led to freezers having self-defrosting features as time went on. Some of the best days during your school-aged years may have been the ones where your teacher wheeled in the reel-to-reel film projector. Watching her struggle to load the film manually, the rhythmic sound of the running projector, and just the thought that it was going to be an easy day made seeing this contraption a very welcome sight. Did you happen to see some of these blockbusters in the theater? Maybe you even waited in a long line just to get a ticket. Do you remember the brown and yellow Charles Chips tin that would show up on your doorstep? These large canisters held a variety of potato chips, pretzels, and even cookies, and were certainly a treat for kids across the country. Seeing the Charles Chips man on your street brought an excitement that only those delicious chips could cure. There were two important weddings that had everyone watching as they were broadcast on TV. Both of them occurred the same year, in 1981. The first was the wedding of Prince Charles and Lady Diana in July, which was watched by over 700 million people worldwide. The second was the daytime soap marriage of Luke and Laura on General Hospital. This wedding was record-breaking at the time, with 30 million people tuning in to see it happen. And it was even reported that Princess Diana herself sent the actors champagne to celebrate the TV event. How many phone numbers do you remember by heart? Not too long ago, we used to have quite a few stored in our brain. If not, there was a written list of numbers stuck to the refrigerator. Today, some people don't even know their own number. Young people especially have grown up without the need to memorize any phone numbers because their smartphone keeps track of it for them. Many of us can even still recall our childhood numbers because it was such a big part of growing up in the era of wall-mounted home phones. Spell check is nearly as old as word processors, and many of us have watched Microsoft and now Google automate spelling things correctly. This has minimized the need to own a dictionary. Therefore, very few of us these days use it to check the spelling or even to define a word. Dictionaries were once books that could be found in just about every home. But just like many other things from the past, we have traded physical dictionaries for digital ones. One of the best parts of owning a car from the 1960s and 1970s was the built-in air conditioning that came in the form of the small triangular window that could be vented to direct fresh air into the vehicle. These vent windows were found in just about every car and truck because they were functional features that everyone appreciated. As more cars offered true air conditioning as a standard feature, vent windows were not utilized quite as much, and they just became another feature that was trimmed from the design of more advanced, fuel-efficient cars. Millions of Americans grew up calling a local telephone number to find out the exact time and temperature. This was before we carried accurate timepieces in the form of a cell phone, and occasionally you would just need to know what time it was. A recorded voice would inform you of the precise time, and maybe even give you the temperature outside before disconnecting. This allowed you to set your new alarm clock, or even correct the clocks after a power outage. In many areas, this service still exists, and you can still call to find out the time, which is a fun reminder of the past. As a kid, we used to spend a lot more time looking at the coins we used. This was a time when cash was still king, and coins offered special features that made them collectible. There were wheat pennies, buffalo nickels, and even silver and half dollars. Sometimes these were even given as gifts from grandparents, and most of us had more than a few of them. Back then, coins were used more frequently, and so we spent more time looking at the ones we were given. Today, some of these rare coins are worth a pretty penny, and it makes you wonder about those coins you once had. Who remembers these fabric calendars that used to hang in kitchens everywhere? These cloth calendars were made to fit any kitchen decor, plus many of them came with a wooden dowel through the top that made them easy to hang. They were pretty much sold everywhere, so you could pick up the next year's calendar at the local 5 and dime store. These popular calendars were probably the most convenient option for keeping track of the date during the 1970s. Did you happen to grow up reading any of these books? Playing outside was the ultimate way to spend a Saturday just a few decades ago. Not only did we ride our bikes everywhere, but we also played games in the streets. Whether it was a game of football or street hockey, the inevitable car would pass requiring a temporary pause in the game. Everyone would yell "car" and the road would clear so it could pass, and then the game would resume. These small interruptions were just part of playing outside, and it is just another example of how times have changed. Cassette tapes from the late 1970s and 1980s made owning and listening to music easy. Not only did you get your favorite album on tape, but the case also included an insert that included all of the lyrics to each song. How many of you remember checking the words to a song by unfolding the cassette insert? This was always a bonus when you needed to double check the words before you sang the song aloud in front of friends. While you had the insert out, it was also a good time to check out the album artwork too. The Three Stooges used to be standard viewing for many young people as they were growing up. Everyone had their favorite, whether it was Moe, Larry, Curly, or even Shemp, but all of them provided lots of laughs with their slapstick shenanigans. The comedians appeared in over 220 films, with most of them being shorts, and these are the ones that we remember seeing on television. The Three Stooges came to an end by 1970, but reruns were big through the 1980s, which saw many young boys imitating the comedy routines made famous by the Three Stooges. If you were a child of the 1960s, then you remember the color coordinating toilet paper that matched the bathroom decor from that era. The colors included mostly pastels, with shades of pinks, blues, and greens. At the time, it seemed like a no-brainer to have matching toilet paper, but with health concerns about the effects of dyes on the human body, plus the cost to produce multiple colors, most companies just settled on white. So the days of buying colorful brands of Northern or Scott toilet tissues ended sometime in the early 1980s. During the 1960s and 1970s, it seemed that just about everything came in a tin box. It didn't matter if it was Band-Aids, cocoa, or Sucrets. These little tins were everywhere. Most households would also find creative ways to reuse them once they were empty. I'm sure if you think back, you can still remember some of the trinkets you would store in them, like bobby pins, buttons, baseball cards, or even nuts and bolts. They had countless uses, and were even collected by some, but by the late 1980s, the metal tins were being phased out and replaced by recyclable cardboard. There was a time when soda vending machines looked like this. You would drop your change in the slot, open the door, and pull out a nice cold glass bottle. The machines didn't offer the same variety of flavors you would find today, and that's because back then, companies like Coke and Pepsi stocked the small vending machines with just one flavor. These now vintage machines remind us of how things used to be, when everything was just a little bit simpler. Did you own any of these albums? For me, seeing my sister wake up in the morning wearing these pink foam hair rollers was a common occurrence. Curling your hair seemed to be much more popular decades ago, and these sponge curlers were a go-to. Some girls used heated ones, but these foam ones were much easier and still gave you the curly and bouncy hair you were looking for. Recollection Road loves to recommend LEGACYBOX because we both believe in preserving the past. If you have a cluttered closet with cherished home videos and photos that rarely see the light of day, then you need to visit LEGACYBOX.com/recollection. These irreplaceable heirlooms are rapidly fading away, and they deserve to be digitized and shared with family and friends. And right now, LEGACYBOX is offering you $9 tape transfers. The process is simple. Send in your LEGACYBOX filled with old VHS tapes, camcorder tapes, and pictures. Their team will professionally digitize everything by hand, right here in the USA. You'll get the originals returned to you, along with organized digital copies. I love LEGACYBOX because it makes all my favorite memories available anytime. I can post them on social media or pull up a slideshow on my TV, which keeps special family moments alive. Visit LEGACYBOX.com/recollection to shop their $9 tape sale. That's LEGACYBOX.com/recollection to unlock this incredible offer. Let me know in the comments if I missed anything, and make sure to check the description of this video for links to pick up a t-shirt and sign up for the newsletter. Also, don't forget to visit our friends at Horn & Hardart to save 10% on your next order. Visit hornandhardart.com/recollection. Thank you to our loyal Patreon supporters listed here. Visit patreon.com/recollectionroad to join the club.